was just a truly special play from a guy that's going to go down the history books as maybe the greatest player of all time.
Did you also know that 2018 was the last of LeBron in Cleveland?
I couldn't even talk about my experiences playing in the NHL for at least 10 years after I retired without welling up with emotion.
Hi everyone, I am Mackenzie Salmon and welcome to Sports Seriously. We are a brand new show brought to you by the USA Today Sports Network. Here we talk about more than just the stats. We're tapping into the conversations fans and reporters are having and combining our insights with your fandom. We take ourselves seriously, but not too seriously. This week, my co-captain is USA Today Sports Now reporter Annalise Bailey. What's up?
Hi girl, I'm excited.
Me too. Every week, we like to start off the show with a segment we like to call Three Things, where we take a closer look at the topics everyone's talking about in the sports world. So first thing this week, how on earth? So New Orleans Saints head coach Sean Payton is getting the Adam Sandler treatment. Kevin James, aka Paul Blart Mall Cop, is going to be playing the coach in a movie called Home Team.
Yes, so the movie is being produced by Happy Madison Productions, which is Adam Sandler's production company.
Yep. It's
set to start filming this year, and it's based on the true story that will chronicle how Peyton came to be the assistant coach for his son's sixth grade football team in 2012 when he was suspended from the league for his role in the Bountygate scandal. Girl, how on earth did this happen?
So, from my investigating online, apparently Sean's daughter is dating the brother-in-law of Adam Sandler, and that's kind of how he pitched it to him. But for me, I'm just like, it doesn't matter who you are, Coach Sean Payton, as long as you know someone in Hollywood, you can get a movie made about you.
You get a movie and you get a movie.
I'm kind of excited for it. But second thing, moving on to the second thing this week, social media jerseys. So in their spring game this weekend, University of Central Florida players donned their brand new jerseys with their social media handles on the back of where their last name would normally be. To me, this is definitely just the whole athlete compensation argument of, we can't really pay them just yet, but they can be their own person. I'm not really a fan. What do you think?
I love the idea of athletes getting to develop their off-the-field personal brand. And this is a fun way to do just that. And it's cool to see that UCF was like the first big college team to explore this particular concept. We will definitely have to keep an eye out on this as the conversation of name, image, and likeness evolves.
As much as the jerseys and the other topics have taken the spotlight, we do want to turn to our front pager, the story dominating the sports game right now, and it actually has nothing to do with the game itself. This past week, a 20-year-old black man by the name of Daunte Wright was fatally shot by a police officer in Minnesota at a traffic stop. We saw coaches, athletes speak out about the incident, and I think further proving athletes and sports' ability to bring awareness to these issues in our country.
Yeah, before we talk about how the world of sports is reacting, I just want to acknowledge that this week has been extremely, extremely heavy. That fatal shooting took place just miles away from where the trial of Derek Chauvin is happening this month. Chauvin is on trial for the murder of George Floyd. If you've been watching that trial, you know how devastating it has been to literally relive that fatal event that happened in Minneapolis over the summer. This scenario of a traffic stop resulting in death is nothing new to us. It is exhausting. It is frustrating, and it does not get any easier as time goes on. The Black community is really hurting right now, but I think Celtics All-Star Jaylen Brown really encapsulates how everyone is feeling in this next clip. So let's take a look.
If you're watching this, listening or tuning in, I just want you to know that your life has value, so much value. That they're trying so hard to make you feel otherwise. My life has value. My life had value before I played for the Celtics, and it will long after.
At one point, I do want to make, we have seen athletes in the past speak out. We've seen the social justice trailblazers, but now we're seeing it being embraced universally, more and more making it a part of their platforms to speak out on these issues.
Mm-hmm. These athletes are simply leveraging their platforms to bring awareness on everything that's happening in the country today. And our next guest, Cavs forward Kevin Love, is doing the same. We have more on that next. Kevin Love has been one of the trailblazers in sports to talk about mental health. And that conversation is so important right now. And his latest partnership ties all of this together.
Kevin was with us on behalf of the Genomind Mental Health Map, a comprehensive report that helps people better understand their own personal mental health obstacles. We chat with him about his own personal mental health journey, and we backtrack with him to his glory days with LeBron in Cleveland. Take a look.
Kevin, in your Players Tribune article, you said, "You can't achieve your way out of depression." That statement really resonated with me in my personal mental health journey, and I think it's really powerful for others to hear. What have you learned about yourself with that mindset that you think could help others in their daily battles?
My mindset so much growing up, even till about 3 years ago, I was giving myself gray hair. I was giving myself, I already had acute anxiety, even more anxiety, and getting myself closer to panic attacks because I was trying to achieve my way out of my depression. I was trying to achieve myself out of this anxiety, thinking if I just got to this level, maybe I'll be okay. And then, when that doesn't happen, I'm still left with this same brain, and my depression and even more anxiety arises from dormancy. So, that is something that I've had to continue to tell myself. I've had to speak it out in therapy, understanding that that's a major trigger for me, that I put that carrot right outside of what I consider success. And, that's something that, has put inflammation in my body. It's hurt my brain. It's hurt my relationships because, so much of the time I felt like nothing was good enough. And, my gratitude was thrown off, and my understanding of what was important was thrown off. And, it really affected my relationships. And at the end of the day, I feel like that is what has given so much love and understanding and passion, all of that, consistency in my life. And, I can leverage that into so many greater things that can positively impact not only my life, but it's a domino effect. So many other people's lives. It can really create a ripple effect in that way.
Kevin, in your 2018 Players Tribune article, you wrote, "Growing up, you figure out really quickly how a boy is supposed to act. It's like a playbook. Be strong. Don't talk about your feelings. Get through it on your own." So now in 2021, how do you think boys and men should be taught differently?
Yeah, I think that language, it's beautiful to see it now change, right? I was, somebody who was going through a lot of pain and really from 12, 13 years old, middle school on. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I didn't have the language to be able to communicate or speak about that at a high level. But doing the work on myself the past few years and having gone to therapy, I feel like I've been, really just diving into my relationships and becoming a better communicator and allowing myself to express myself in a positive way, in a healthy way. And I think, this new generation that we're seeing grow up now, I think they're understanding that youth can have such a positive impact and be able to make real change in the world.
I'm very curious, Kevin. You being a vet in the league, how has this conversation different today in the NBA locker room versus when you started back in 2008? I know you're one who's always tried to combat the notion of what a man can and can't talk about when it comes to mental health head on. Is that macho mentality still prevalent in the NBA?
I think to a certain extent, but I'm very thankful, first of all, to have somebody like DeMar DeRozan who was able to get my foot in the door and understand that he's a black man in America who grew up in Compton, California, and for him to step forward and say, "Hey, I deal with depression," a lot had to be considered and go through his mind and think that he was going to be looked at as weak. But what I've learned is that actually on the other end of that is becoming more evolved and you're more empathetic, and it's almost like a superpower. I always say only by admitting who we are do we get what we want. There's no real life to live if you're living it in the shadows. So I think, from sports players like a DeMar, like a Dak Prescott, and so on and so forth, those type of players and those type of people coming out and saying that they experience anxiety and depression and in some cases severe forms of mental illness, I think it just empowers people, even outside of the world of sports, to come out and say, hey, listen, this is something that affects everybody. There's strength in numbers. And it's, when you base things, around community, it just makes you feel like you're part of something bigger and a part of, more so on the winning side of history.
Between the Kevin Love Fund, your partnership with Genomind, and your general openness about your mental health, how important are all of these things for you outside of being defined as an NBA player?
I think, from using those 4 pillars and, trying to move myself forward, I believe that I've found life after basketball and something that's going to be a bigger legacy piece for me than this game. And that's, I really, truly believe, a beautiful thing. And listen, another thing I always say is dreams don't have deadlines, whether it's, before your career, during your career, after your primary career. For me, it took me till about 10, 11 years in to find that, but it's opened me up to so many other beautiful things after basketball. And early on, as I said in the Players Tribune articles that you guys alluded to, like I had such a, just ugly relationship with myself, or a unhealthy relationship with myself when it came to my identity outside of basketball, where if I was hurt, I didn't feel like I had anything else. Put me in a really dark spot when the game was taken away. But now I feel like, I mentioned earlier, that winning side of history, that I can play a small role in that. And that gives me the self-satisfaction that if I, merge that with, helping people, if I merge that with, what I'm doing with my fun and life after basketball, as well as my relationships, that honestly, anything can be possible. So that allows me to, get some source of happiness every single day.
Kevin's involvement in the conversation about mental health is so important, not just for the world of sports, but for society as a whole.
Agreed. And he's clearly going to continue to have an impact off the court. But speaking of on the court, we did get to backtrack with Kevin to some of the most iconic moments in his career.
Yes, Mackenzie, we look back at his highs and his lows of his time with LeBron in Cleveland. And we start with the highest of highs, winning the title in 2016, and of course, reliving LeBron's famous block at the end of Game 7.
When you run it back, because I was running back on defense, J.R. Smith was ahead of me, and then Iguodala had the ball. And I just remember that split second when, J.R., he went over the top just to create that little bit of space and that little bit of time to then allow Bron to take off and pin that ball on the glass. I mean, that's what I remember. I had maybe a better shot and glance and angle at it than anybody else. So again, I think I've said it before, I think the greatest and most clutch, block, maybe defensive play of all time. I know we had several plays in that game that were incredibly meaningful, but for that, there's no telling how the game would have ended up if he didn't have that miraculous play in a Game 7 on the road like that. It was just a truly special play from, a guy that's going to go down the history books as maybe the greatest player of all time.
Kevin, you were the first one to embrace LeBron after the buzzer. What was that moment like for you, and what do you remember most?
I mean, just pure elation and excitement. And he just happened to be, how he walked off and he was right in front of me. He was like the first person I saw, and I just, went and gave him a big hug. And, that is one of the etched in a lot of, I guess, greater Cleveland and Ohio and Cavs fans' minds forever, that photo. It's definitely a special one. Even before I got there, like the look on my face and, just how, just pure joy out of everybody's face from overcoming a 3-1 deficit, winning on the road in Game 7 and a 52-year drought for major sports in Cleveland. It was really special. And it was great to see, LeBron win Finals MVP and stick true to his promise to win one for the city of Cleveland.
Looking back at the 2018 Finals, the series obviously defined by the J.R. Smith play, The meme with LeBron that came afterwards, obviously, I don't think anyone will ever forget that. But looking back at that moment, are you able to find some sort of humor in how memeable that moment was?
Laugh to keep from crying, I guess. One of those is.
Kyrie said that he wanted out of Cleveland because he knew LeBron was leaving. Was the writing on the wall the whole time? Did you also know that 2018 was the last of LeBron in Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely something that, was kind of being said underneath people's breath. I mean, I felt like I had an idea. Channing Frye and I were super close. We had, kind of talked about it. And, it was just the next chapter for him. We felt like that was, it was somewhere he obviously started his career in Cleveland, had gone to Miami, needed a different look, had played with two other great superstars and great pieces on that team. Came back to Cleveland. He stayed true to his promise, like I mentioned, and he went to 4 straight finals with Cleveland, which was, super special. And then he was just figuring out what was the next chapter, and that's worked out for him in a real special way. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his family. But again, to answer that question, yeah, we did feel like the writing was on the wall.
Obviously, Kyrie is on the Nets. LeBron and AD will make their returns in LA. You being teammates with both, how cool and I guess surreal would it be for you to see them in the finals, knowing that the three of you will forever be connected in Cleveland?
It'd definitely be interesting to see, but I'll tell you what, get your popcorn ready because that would be one for the ages there. If everybody's healthy on both sides, that would be a really amazing finals with some guys that are first ballot Hall of Famers, many first ballot Hall of Famers. It'd be a little odd, obviously, to see my former counterparts and guys that I played with and love, respectively, to go against each other on opposite teams in the Eastern and Western Conference. But again, I think we'd all enjoy seeing that in a big way because it would just be beautiful basketball.
Mackenzie, you could tell that Kevin was legit excited to see a Nets-Lakers finals.
Yeah, and honestly, who doesn't with that matchup at this point? I know I personally do. But in our last segment, we go from an NBA trailblazer to a hockey legend. And instead of being on the rink, he's making his way to a screen near you. So we'll check that out next. Annalise, we have got a true NHL icon. He's a man who helped the Rangers break the 54-year-old drought. It was honestly a moment that earned him the nickname the Messiah.
Yes, you're talking about Mark Messier.
Yes, I am. We hit on the growth of hockey, especially with an emphasis on the women's game. He takes us down memory lane to relive the magical 1994 run with the Rangers. But before we get into all that, he does tell me about a commercial that he recently starred in with some icy cold co-stars. Let's check it out. First things first, I know you recently starred in a Tide commercial.
Hello.
Hello, Mark Messier.
It's Messier.
Mark Messier.
Messier.
I'm curious, was Stone Cold Steve Austin what you expected him to be?
What a beautiful man. What a great soul. Just awesome. I really enjoyed the experience meeting him. Ice-T. I mean, they're my contemporaries, so we had a lot in common, and the whole experience was amazing.
I love that. Well, I mean, obviously you've been very busy with work. I know I saw you recently launched a $200,000 donation match for Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. Equitability in women's sports is an issue we see even today, as you know. How did this initiative start for you, and what kind of made you want to get behind it?
Well, I think the diversity in our game in general has been on the forefront for a long time. I think the Mark Messier Leadership Award is not only about providing great leadership on and off the ice, but it's also about growing our game in a diverse way. Obviously, the women's game has come so far in the last 20 years. Skill development to the conditioning, the game itself. Every young boy or girl should have a dream and have a role model to look up to. And if any young boy or girl wants to play professional sports, they should have that opportunity. And we need to provide a better platform, I believe, for the women. Obviously, the colleges are packed with girls playing hockey, but then with no end game. And I think that we can do better. We should be able to do better and create better opportunities for these young girls to achieve their dreams just as well.
That's amazing. I love that. Speaking of growing the game, of hockey, ESPN, I'm sure you saw, inked an NHL TV deal to bring it back on the worldwide leader in sports. When you heard that, I mean, what kind of a move does this mean for the NHL getting back on ESPN?
Yeah, I think, the NHL in itself is probably as strong as it's been in a long time from a business perspective. I think the game itself has made some improvements to bring out back the speed and the skill in our game, and I think it's better entertainment value. We still have all the intangibles that make our game so different, that is so compelling, especially in playoff hockey. So that's really, really exciting, and to be able to kind of get a platform like ESPN to really kind of continue to showcase our great game and our talented players is massive. So I think just a whole opportunity for the NHL to continue to expand and tell the great stories about the players in our game is essential to the growth of the game and to inspire more boys and girls to continue to play and try to achieve their dreams.
Obviously, after the lockout, the NHL was no longer on ESPN. In hindsight, do you think that absence maybe hurt the game of hockey when you're thinking about the typical American sports fan just watching on SportsCenter?
Well, you can debate one way or another. I think that we've seen a steady trajectory in our game over the last, let's say since the Rangers won the Stanley Cup in 1994. I think there's no question that the league has been on a upward trajectory from a business standpoint, and the numbers show that. Obviously, you have to have a willing partner in order to make any deal, and maybe the time wasn't right for ESPN for whatever reason to re-engage. The NHL did the deal that they felt was best for them at the time, but here we are years later, ESPN coming back into the fold, and we're excited about it. I think the league's excited. I think the fans are excited, but NBC, and we've had some good partners along the way, so we can't discredit anybody that's helped us get to the point we're at right now. But I think everybody's pretty excited about the deal.
Winning the cup for the Rangers, I'm sure you talked ad nauseum about it, but what I really want to know is how important has that moment meant to you? I mean, over these past 25 years, has that moment aged at all for you, or do you still, when you think about it, get the same feelings you had back then?
I couldn't even talk about my experiences playing in the NHL for at least 10 years after I retired without welling up with emotion and pride from the players that I played beside. I had a powerful experience in so many different ways. The 94 Stanley Cup in New York is so meaningful for so many different reasons. One being obviously an original six team, 54 years without a Stanley Cup, generations of fans that had never seen the Stanley Cup, let alone thought it was possible to see the Stanley Cup paraded around in Madison Square Garden. The fan base, the engagement between the team and us was remarkable. The imagery is so ingrained to all of our minds in that regard that and they're so passionate about when they're telling you, and it's important that you do take the time to listen to them, because it's something that they've been living with for all these years, and not to discredit it or to walk by it thinking that it doesn't mean that much, because it did mean a lot to everybody.
Annalise, thank you so much for being my co-captain this week.
You are so welcome. We had some really impactful and informative moments.
I agree. And if you guys want more sports stories and covers that go beyond just the X's and O's, be sure to check us out next week, where we are wrapping our heads around the biggest trend in sports right now, NFTs. Tom Brady is launching an NFT company. A LeBron James NFT highlight sold for $200,000. And even Gronk is trying to get a part of the NFT scene. What are they? How do they work? We'll get into all that when we see you next week. I'm Mackenzie Salmon.
And I'm Annalise Bailey.
Take it easy, y'all. Hey sports fans, if you want to see more videos like this, check out some of our other ones right here. And if you like what you see, make sure to hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for more from USA Today Sports.